everyone. Oh, so excited that you are here tonight for our webinar. You know, I have to, those of you who have ever heard me do a webinar before, I have to tell you, I have spent more time on this webinar, I think, than any other webinar I've ever done. And why would I do that? Why would I do that? Because this subject is such an important subject. And so I might actually be emotional tonight because we're going to talk about emotions. And it's something that it runs our lives, and it has been something that has been hugely powerful in my life, in upgrading me, in upgrading my results, in being able to become a better version of myself. If any of you have ever wanted to be a better version of yourself, you need to understand what we're talking about tonight. You do, because what we're talking about tonight has that potential. If you've lived your life and you've ever felt like, I know I can be a better version of myself, and I just don't know what the piece is that I need to understand better, this is it. This that we're going to talk about tonight, it is it. It is. It has had such a profound effect on my life. And the come from I'm going to have tonight is going to be different than what you've probably ever heard before. It just is. And that's what I have the passion for, is taking complex concepts and simplifying them down to where you and I can use them. Because there's plenty of complex out there, but there isn't enough simple. There isn't enough simple. We need more of that simple in our life. If you feel like you need more simple in your life, will you just find your raise the hand button at the bottom of the screen and raise your hand for me? Because maybe there's some of you who are like, no, I got plenty of simple. I need more complex. Well, okay, I'm not going to make it complex tonight, so I'm sorry to disappoint. But man, if you've needed more simple, yeah, look at all those hands. You and I, we're in the right place tonight. We're in the right place at the right time. Because have you ever given into any of these kinds of thoughts in your head? Oh, it's too late. Or, oh man, I've already ruined my children. Or if only, have you ever said those words? If only things like this in my past would have been different. If only is an indicator that we're giving into this rhetoric in our head. My son is in high school right now, and he's in a college English class, and they're studying rhetoric. And so I've been learning a lot about rhetoric and how rhetoric works. And it can work against us. We have rhetoric in our own head. And one of the forms of rhetoric is emotional rhetoric. It's appealing to trying to get you to take to change or believe something based on emotions. I fail at everything I do. Great one, Tammy, to recognize, right? Yeah, if you recognize a rhetoric that shuts you down in your head, that tries to make you believe that it's too late, that you can't do it, why try? Other people can do it, but I can't. Type it in the chat. Let me see what it is. Because this chat right here, you can see me, right? I guess I should have checked. You can see and hear me, right? But I can't see or hear you. But what I can do is I can see the chat, and I can see when you raise your hand. So that's how you and I are going to communicate tonight. You and I are going to interact, because interaction is going to help us to absorb a complex concept very simply. I've ruined my children and don't know what to do next. Oh, Andrea, right? So had that rhetoric go through my head. I'm not strong enough. I can't keep up. I wish I had. Oh, yeah, I can feel these, you guys. It's emotions are something that, they can work for us, and they can so work against us. And so if you've ever felt emotions work against you, raise your hand. I just got to know. Have you ever felt emotions work against you? Or you've tried to do a new action and emotions have shut that new action down? If any time emotions have worked against you, yeah, about half of you recognize that. And the rest of you probably just haven't found your raise the hand button, because that's just the way emotions work. I've already ruined my teenage children. I'm working on changing that negative self-talk, right? Oh, that's a good one. I'm not lovable. Oh, thank you, Heather, for speaking that comment that goes through so many of our heads. I wish I was more talented. Why didn't I go to college, right? All of these trying to get us to worry about the past instead of the present or moving forward. I keep thinking I should have gotten stronger sooner. When I'm overloaded, I lash out inappropriately. I even told an attorney that she was stupid. I love it, Sid. I love it. Way to show the human side of all of us, right? Right. She called me on it. I calmed down and apologized, but I really surprised myself, right? All right. So we all need to take a deep breath, because emotions are something that need movement. They need to have movement, and breathing causes movement in our physical body. And so tonight I want you to remember that and take a deep breath once in a while. Notice if you have been breathing really shallow or holding your breath, because when we start to look at our patterns, it can cause us to forget to take deep breaths. We really will. I have to be perfect. People don't like being with me. My emotions are so connected to me physically. Yep, I wasted my life. All of these. Oh, you guys, I love it. And what I love about you putting them in the chat is it helps us recognize. I'll also make up words tonight. It helps us to recognize that we're not alone. Other people have things that they struggle with, just like I do. And so if you read through the chat and you resonate with any of those comments, remind yourself, I'm not alone. And tonight I'm going to understand more. Just remind yourself of that. Take a deep breath. I'm not alone. And tonight I'm going to understand more. And I don't have to understand it all at once. My past, this is what I tell my personal mentoring clients when things like this come up. As I tell them, I say, nothing in your past was supposed to be different. It was, we can even say it was just right, just the way it was, because it's in the present that I have my power. It's in the present that I have my power. However, if I am constantly if-onlying my past, that past is robbing my present from me. Does that make sense? My past, my present, my power in the present will be robbed from me if I'm constantly trying to change the past. But can I upgrade from the past? Can I become a better version of me? Can I get over the past? Yes, all of those are true. Right? Yeah. So I'm not alone, and tonight I'm going to understand more. Yep, absolutely. So I'm going to share my screen here. Let's push all the right buttons. Can you see my screen? If you can see my screen, raise your hand so that I can make sure. There we go. I can see your hand. So you can see my screen. Fantastic. And let me put the chat right over here. Yeah. Struggle with boundaries, struggle with anger, shaming, other people's emotions. Absolutely. Let's jump into talking about emotions, because holy cow, so much cool stuff to talk about, so little time. So let's get jumping into this. Are you ready? If you're ready, take a deep breath, raise your hand and say, let's go. Oh, there's my hands. Okay. Yes. Woohoo. All right. So tonight I titled this Understanding Your Emotional Coping Pattern, because everybody has an emotional coping pattern. Oh, and I have to write a note to myself really quick here, because I got to tell you this at the end. There we go. Okay. So tonight we're going to talk about, there's 3 parts that we need to unravel, that we need to uncover. And those are, why do we have patterns? why do I even have an emotional coping pattern? Because sometimes it's like, what in the heck? If I didn't have to deal with emotions, let's see if anybody resonates with this one. If I didn't have to resonate, let me try again. If I didn't have to deal with my emotions or somebody else's, life would be a lot easier. I will admit I have thought that. If I didn't have to deal with my emotions or somebody else's emotions, life would be a lot easier. Because, I hear people all the time, they'll tell me they're overwhelmed or that they're frustrated. And when we talk about it, the part that in overwhelm that really shuts people down isn't even the amount of stuff going on in their life. It's the emotions about the stuff in their life that's going on that's shutting them down. It's the emotions. They take up, they're like a gas. They will take up all the space. They'll take up all the space and even make it you feel like you can't breathe. Yay. I love that. I'm beautiful inside and out. I'm upgrading thanks to Anne. Now for the emotions. Woohoo! So we're going to talk about why we even have patterns and how those patterns help us and how they hurt us. We're going to talk about those. And then the third thing we're going to talk about, hopefully this is one of the reasons you clicked register on this webinar, is how to recognize your pattern. Because when you can recognize your pattern, you can do something about it. And that's what I want. I want to upgrade me. Yeah, I feel like I'm emotionally exhausted. They're just emotions. Oh, crazy thing. And there isn't like an owner's manual that we have about emotions. I should write one. The owner's manual. The emotional owner's manual. I could come up with something. That could be good. So remember, every time I do a webinar, I ask for an agreement. Because if there's not an agreement, then subconsciously you will feel like you're off the hook to make any changes in your life. You don't have to, and without changes, there's no change. If nothing changes, nothing changes. But if something changes, things change. So we want to make a change. So the first thing I'm going to ask for in our agreement is be willing to look at and see new things. Because tonight, I'm going to show you new things. I know they're new because almost every slide I'm going to show you tonight is new. I have made so many new slides in the last week. It's fun. It's going to be fun. So be willing to look at and see new things. And the second is be willing to choose a new action, because the reality is new knowledge has an expiration date. And without new action within about 72 hours, the knowledge will expire and will have to be relearned. It'll have to be relearned. And so, so glad you guys found us. Yay, welcome. And those of you that are just getting on, buckle up, because we are here to talk about how to be able to upgrade our lives through understanding our emotional patterns. And so I want to know if you're willing to agree to these two things. Just be open to looking at new things. And then secondly, at the end, I'm going to ask you, what action step are you going to take? Because if you don't take a new action, then what was the point of spending these 2 hours with me? There's no point in spending these 2 hours if you're not willing to take a new action. So either raise your hand or tell me in the chat, say, yes, Anne, I will agree to this. Because without an agreement, then we're destined to have the same results. And if you're tired of your results, if you would like a new result, if you would like to have new in your life, then it's time to have new behavior. New behavior will give you new results. Cool? I don't see everybody. Not everybody's agreed yet. Come on. I just realized that if I don't take action right away, I'll talk myself out of it. So come on. If you haven't agreed yet, it's simple. There's no harm in this agreement. Okay. So be willing to consider new things and take a new action. All right. Yes, I want to change and experience results, right? it's not just listening alone will not change our results. So, okay, excellent. Thanks, you guys. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for getting past the opposition that tried to stop you from being here tonight. Yeah, I know. Nobody called me up, but I know that that's what happens. When there's an opportunity to truly and positively change a result in our lives, we will run into opposition that will try to stop us. And those of you that are just getting here, good job. Way to find it. Way to be here. Way to stick through it. Good job. I'm proud of you. And I'm grateful that you're here. So a little bit, those of you who have not met me before, here's a little bit about me. This is a picture of me and my husband. This is from a recent family picture. And we have 4 boys and 1 daughter and 1 son-in-law. So our daughter is married, but none of our boys are married yet. My youngest is a senior in high school. And so, yes, I have had all those thoughts about, oh, it's too late. I ruined my children, or how do I help my last teenager, or all of those things. I've had all the comments. Totally get it. I started this journey. In fact, I've been holding mentoring appointments today. And in one of my mentoring appointments, there was this brand new person that I was working with. And she's like, so how long have you been a public speaker? How long have you been in this world? And I'm like, you know what? November is 12 years. So it'll be 12 years next month. And I'll have to come in here and change this to 12 next month. It's been quite the journey. And the reason I've been on this journey is because I recognized that my kids and my spouse and even the person in the mirror deserved a chance to see a better version of me, deserved to have a chance to, especially the person in the mirror, to feel better about who I saw there, to feel more confident, and to just, I don't know, do you know what it's like to just feel like you're spinning your wheels, that nothing will ever change, that you're going to keep running into the same problems over and over again, and you're going to keep being afraid of the same kind of people, and you're going to keep having the same triggers and the same life. And it's like, this isn't what I signed up for. I didn't sign up for 60 years of the same day happening over and over again. I don't want to be living the same day over and over again. I want to be able to do better. And so 12 years ago, I left the world of engineering. So I left flight simulation and explosives. I did explosives first and then flight simulation. And I left that world thinking, actually, that I would go and be a dentist, because I thought, you know what? If I just change careers, everything will be better. If I just change what I'm doing, then I'll find what I'm looking for. Then I won't be so sad. Then I won't be so depressed. Then I won't be so anxious. Then I won't be so afraid of people. Fill in the blank. I just thought I would change careers. And I was about to start dental school when I came across the concept of body language. And it just hooked me. It hooked me. I bit that hook so hard because I realized that communication was giving me a lot of my results, and that my communication was messed up because the messages I was sending in my body language were different than the messages coming out of my mouth. And so this was part of the reason I was having the results I was. And so since then, in the last 12 years, I am a body language and I'm a behavior expert. To be the kind of body language expert that I am, you cannot avoid psychology. So I have fully delved into the world of psychology. I've been a TEDx speaker. I'm a mechanical engineer, so I have a science come from. So this is why I like to take complex concepts and simplify them down. I worked in flight simulation and explosives. I was going to write hot, but I'm like, that doesn't sound right, but cool. Given lots of presentations, personal and group mentoring, which is my passion, to help people get unstuck. And tonight we're going to talk about stuck. So if you've ever been stuck in your life, raise your hand for me. Because if you have, you are in the right place tonight, because we're going to look at getting unstuck. No more stuckness. We want to be able to have, excellent. We want to be able to have the tools that when we notice we're not moving, how do we get moving again? Lost count of how many times I've been on radio and TV, created 20 more or more than 20 programs, working on more, worked with over 1,000 people on stage, live in front of people. That's a lot of people. So there's me. Here's some of the awards that the company 3 Key Elements that I've worked with for the last 12 years has received, some of the places that I've been on TV, awards, etc. So enough about that. But why would I leave a career to do what I do? Why would I leave a career to become a body language expert? And where does that path lead to emotions? I'm so glad you asked. Let me tell you. When it comes to communication, there's three voices of communication. There's the words that we speak, the tone of those words, how they sound as they come out of my mouth. And then there's also my body language. And as I studied body language, and this is why I was asked to do a TED Talk, I realized that body language is connected to our subconscious mind. It's connected to, hang on, I'm going to clean my camera here. I see okay, there we go. Hopefully that's less fuzzy. Our body language is connected to our subconscious, which means body language is like breathing. If you're not paying attention to it, it happens. So breathing, the only way that breathing stops happening without an obstruction is for you to consciously think about it and hold your breath. Well, it's the same with body language. Your body language only stops happening if you consciously think about it and stop it. And so now I was interested. I'm like, okay, so why is my subconscious sending messages? What is my subconscious trying to say? And so I wanted to understand that, especially because I learned early on that our subconscious mind comes up with the words that we're going to say before we say them. This is why you can get too many words trying to come out of your mouth at once, because physically we can only speak about 150 to 200 words at a time. No, not at a time. You can only speak 150 to 200 words in a minute. But there was a whole bunch more words that your subconscious came up with. And so I'm like, well, why? Why is it that all these words are back there? What's going on? And this is what they asked me to give a TED Talk on. I said, okay, I understand your body language is the opportunity to communicate with your subconscious. Your body language is super powerful for communicating with your own subconscious programming. And so I did this TED Talk. It's been, like 6 years now. Doesn't seem like that long ago. And the concepts are still sound, absolutely sound. But tonight, I want you to know for the last 6 years, I have not stopped studying this subject. I am constantly on the lookout of understanding this more. And so now I understand more of why and where the programming in your subconscious comes from. And it has to do with our emotions. So are you ready to learn? Are you ready to learn about your subconscious, about your brain, and about where your self-sabotage comes from? You want to know where your self-sabotage comes from? Then you are gonna love this. So let's jump right into this. This is one of the best ways to understand your brain. In fact, today, so I mentor people from all walks of life. I've mentored CEOs and doctors and stay-at-home moms and stay-at-home dads and lawyers and retired people and public speakers, and I've mentored celebrities. I've mentored people who started companies and went on Shark Tank and I mentored them to go on Shark Tank. I mean, I've done all kinds of mentoring with all kinds of people. And today I was holding a mentoring appointment with a neuroscientist. What are they? I guess I should have asked them what their title is, but they're an expert on how your brain works. Okay. So they're a neuro doctor. Guess I don't know what the title is. I'll have to ask. Anyway, they're an expert on how your brain works. And so I told this person, I said, hey, tonight I'm going to talk about these things. So can I just run it past you and see if I have what I need to say differently or what I have wrong? And so I told it all to her, and she goes, yeah, that's exactly it. And that's a very good way of hearing it. So just so you know, I did run it past a neuroscientist before I even explained it to you today. So the first thing we have to talk about is little you. When you were little, were you just so precious when you were born? Because you're like, however old you are right now, when you were born, we were all the same age when we were born. Can we say that? We were all the same age when we were born. So we share that, and we have that in common. When you're born, here is what sets humans apart from the animal kingdom. Our brain is both our greatest strength and our greatest weakness. It's what sets us apart from the animal kingdom. And so the reason we're born, you know how a giraffe, when they're born, they can stand up within like an hour and run away and follow their mom? Well, the reason we can't do that is because of our brain. The size of our brain makes it so that we have to be born vulnerable. We are helpless as an infant. We can't do anything for ourselves because we're basically still in embryo. We're still developing, but we can't wait any longer to come out because of the size of our brain. Our brain would be damaged if we waited any longer. And so we're born helpless. We're born completely dependent on the people around us to keep us alive and to keep us safe. And so to help with that, our brain is wired for survival. Our brain is wired for survival, but it isn't wired to be able to stand up like a giraffe and run and follow our mom. It's not wired like that. It's wired, well, let's talk about how it's wired. So when we're born, the only parts of our brain that are online when we're first born is our emotional center, and the right side of our brain is what's truly online. The left side of our brain is not online when we're first born. So remember, the left side of the brain is where speech is, where words are, where executive function like reasoning and being able to problem solve. That is in the left side of the brain. So from the time we're born, we are first born with, we've got this emotional center, and we've got our right brain, and I'll talk about what intrinsic memory means here in just a second. And we're working on a sense of who we are. Those are the things that we have when we're first born. So when we come out and we were first held and we look around, and we're right side of our brain is sensing its environment. It isn't listening for words and trying to reason and solve problems. From when we're first born, our brain is sensing what's going on. Our right side of our brain is connected to our emotional center. The emotional processing that happens in the brain happens in the right side of the brain. Did that make sense? Because remember, big concepts, simple, being brought into simple. So I'll watch and make sure. So if I lose you at all, make sure you tell me. Okay, so you got this so far. When you're born, you've got the right side of your brain and you are sensing your environment. And what are you looking for? What are you looking for? You're looking for survival. We're wanting to be able to live, and we are completely dependent on the people around us for our survival. And so we're going to be paying attention to those people closest to us. So the first people that have an influence on us that we try to connect with emotionally are going to be our parents and our caregivers. Our parents and our caregivers are the first people that we're coming into contact with. But your brain, your child brain is not, it's not looking at them and going, oh, look, my mom has blue eyes and blonde hair. And oh, the problem is I have this growling feeling in my stomach. That's not going on. What's going on is things don't feel right or things feel right. That's what's going on in our brain when we're little. And what we're wired to do is to absorb directly into our right side of our brain emotional memory. And in psychology, they call that intrinsic memory. So intrinsic memory, being in the right side of your brain, means that it's not attached to the speaking side of the brain. In other words, you don't have any way to speak about this memory. It's a feeling. It's also where we can get an emotional trigger that we won't understand, that we'll talk about here in a minute. Because those memories get sucked directly into the right side of the brain. And we have more intrinsic memory than we do extrinsic memory. So extrinsic memory is the left side of the brain. It's the cognitive memory. You know, like if I said, oh, I remember when I was 2 years old, and because we don't usually have very many memories from when we're little. This is why, is because it's mostly right side of the brain memory. It's not that we don't have memory, it's that we don't have language memory. Isn't that cool? Okay, this just tickles me. It's so cool. And so we have, oh yes, thank you. Oh, by the way, we have Adam who's handling the backside of everything tonight. And so make sure in the chat, say hi to Adam. We're grateful he's here, and he'll be answering questions, which I'm so grateful for. And I have one more screen. Apparently I bring up. There we go. Okay. What's going on in the brain around 4 or 5 years old? We'll get there. Okay. So if I say I have this memory when I was in first grade, and I say, well, what I remember is that my teacher made me stand up in front of the class and she told everybody this. That is me recalling a memory. It's putting words to that memory. And that kind of memory can be adjusted and healed, if you will. Memories. So this is one thing that I teach mentoring, is that a story that can't change can't be healed. And what I mean by that is that if we remember an event and it was hurtful to us or traumatic to us, if I can talk about that event and I can look at different perspectives of that event, then I can heal from the emotions that have attached to that. Because as an adult, my memories can cross between the left and the right side of the brain. But the memories from when I'm little suck directly into that right side of my brain, and I don't have words for them. They're just a feeling. They're just a feeling that I don't have words for. Does that make sense? And so my goal as this little helpless infant is to survive. So to survive, I need the people closest to me to be interested in taking care of me. And so since my right side of my brain is what's online, I am sensing the emotional coping patterns of my parents. And I am adjusting emotionally to match them. I'm adjusting emotionally to match my parents or my caregivers or my siblings. Or my siblings, or as I get older, because this happens. So the right side of the brain is fully in charge until around 2 years old. Then the left side of the brain starts to come online. And the reason that we're wired that way is it helps us to get language very quickly, because that right side of the brain sucks in information so quickly, it helps with language. And so it gets passed into the left side and we develop language. And so clear up well, clear up through about the age of 8, we're still mostly sucking in information, but your brain has not fully come into its adult function clear up until the age of 26 years old. And so we have a lot of this right side of the brain sucking in information that's still happening even through puberty and our teenage years. So there's a lot of information sucking in there. And then as an adult, I now change my brain's wiring, its focus adjusts. So as a kid, since I'm surviving, I also need to cope with the emotions that are going on around me, or the lack thereof, because I'm looking as a baby to connect at an emotional level. And so most of my memories, most of the things that I will remember, unless there's some kind of trauma, is going to be emotional intrinsic memory. So at 2 years old, the executive functions of the brain, the left side of the brain are coming online. And so now, because of that, I can start into things like talking and potty training and feeding myself. And so clear up as I get older, that more and more of those executive functions of the brain are coming online. Come on, admit it. This is kind of cool the way I came up to do this in a slide, right? To be able to show you this, because it's not always easy to put things into slides. And so that left side of the brain is coming online as we're getting older. And so this is why not everything makes sense to us as we're growing up, because we haven't had enough experience with the left side of our brain. And this is why they say don't underage drinking is bad, because the brain is still developing. And so as we get a little older, 2 years old, 3 years old, 5 years old, we go to school, our friends have an influence on us. And now we're being exposed to our friends who have been exposed to their parents. And so we're feeling the emotions of that environment, and then other experiences. So all of these are starting to shape who I am emotionally, not just physically, but emotionally. Because I can remember, this is a true story of being singled out in first grade. And in first grade, my teacher said, okay, I want Anne and Chris to stand up. And I'm like, oh no, what have I done? I tried so hard. What did I miss? And all these thoughts are going through my head, and I can remember it, but I can remember the emotion too. And my teacher said, Chris and Anne are the only ones who haven't missed a single answer on any of their assignments this year. And now I was like, oh my gosh, responsibility. So I responded from a place of responsibility. Oh, I can't ever miss another thing again. And so now I took on some perfectionism. I got to make people happy by making sure I'm doing things right. Well, Chris didn't respond that way. He's like, no big deal. I'll just keep doing it. But I responded based on my emotional coping that I have adopted as a baby. So have any of you, from what I'm explaining so far, can you recognize that you have taken on emotional coping patterns from your parents? Right? This is why kids will see people laughing and just join in. Yeah, we respond emotionally. Okay, only 2 people. I'm in trouble then. Are you guys following this so far? Okay, cool. So what does the adult brain do? Well, the adult brain, so I have to put this here. So our executive function goes over there, intrinsic comes over here. So in order to be safe in my world, in order to stay alive, what I've done is I've had to get patterns in my brain. I needed emotional patterns that would serve me to make sure that the people in my, to make sure that the people who had the power to keep me alive would do it. And so good news, you guys, you were successful. If you're still alive, you at emotional level, you were able to match the emotional level of the people around you, and they kept you alive. So good job. Pat yourself on the back. You did awesome with that. Well done. So what does the adult brain do? Well, the adult brain is wired differently, because now the adult brain is mostly, oh, it's backwards again. Here we go. The adult brain now, it wants to pay more attention to the executive functions. We now are the focus of our brain changes when we become an adult. And it's at a different time for everybody, how much of that, because like I remember at 12, 13 years old, I took on a lot of the adult responsibilities around my house. And the reason I did that is my parents were not emotionally capable of that. And I'm the oldest child. So my parents both came with emotional coping. Okay. My parents both came with emotional coping. I got my own emotional coping. And that emotional coping caused me to tip into my left side executive function sooner, because my parents needed taking care of. My parents needed somebody to help them stay alive. And so I have my own emotional coping patterns because of that. Anybody else? Have you been the one that had to grow up and take care of your parents? Just curious if there's any others out there. I had to. Oh, Erica did. Okay, Laura did. Delbert did. Karen, there's a few of us, right? And so so we had to check out of our emotional center sooner than our brain was necessarily ready for. And so now as an adult, and everybody eventually needs to tip into their adult, but some of us do it sooner than others, just because of the people that were taking care of us. Right, Andrea? My dad died when I was a teenager, so I did. Yeah. And so, well, this is based on the emotions, Andrea. So if your dad died and your mom was not emotionally able to keep being the adult, then you might tip into being the adult. Or a sibling might tip into being the adult. But you guys, we could talk about any piece of this for 2 hours. This should probably like be a boot camp that we talk about every day for a week. But where our adult brain shifts its focus. Its focus is no longer about emotionally matching the people around us. Our adult brain is now interested in finding patterns and making choices, because finding patterns and making choices is how we heal or upgrade and tip into a place of thriving instead of surviving. So we're going to solve problems. We're going to look for the problems around us. We're looking at what needs to heal, what needs to change. So the child is surviving. Remember this right here. The child is surviving. The adult is figuring out how to thrive. And thriving includes both the right and the left side of the brain, because we all use both of them. But the one that is our focus changes through our life. To me, this is so cool. This is so cool to understand. But it has to be simple, or what's the point? Because I don't want to like have to sit and read medical textbooks to understand this. But I can so resonate with this. I want to thrive. I want to thrive. Have you ever thought that before? You're like, you know what? I want to thrive. You might not have used that word, but you might have thought, I really want life to be better. I want life to be more fulfilling. I want life to feel better. Have you ever thought that? I want life to feel better. What is that like? What would it be like for life to feel better? So raise your hand if you've ever wanted your life to feel better. I will raise my hand. I want my life to feel better, right? Well, then I need to understand what I'm doing. Yeah, I want to be alive, right, Laura? Yeah. So we want to thrive. So we got to figure out what thriving is. Well, what thriving is upgrading from our child programming. There's a verse in the Bible that I'll totally get wrong because I just now thought of it off the top of my head and didn't get a screenshot of it. But it says something that in the Old Testament about the things of a child will be left to a child, but the things of the adult is what the adult will take care of. And I'm totally getting it wrong. But you know what I'm talking about? That verse, you've heard something like that, that even in those ancient books, they're talking about that the things of a child need to be left for a child. Well, what that means is, as an adult, I've got to find the things that I took on as a child to survive my environment, and I need to upgrade them so that I can thrive as an adult. When I was a child, I acted as a child, but when I became an adult, I put away childish things. Thank you, R. Shelton. That's what we're doing. But we don't have the owner's manual of how to do that. And why don't we? Hold on to that question, because I'm going to explore that question as well. And so this is what happens. All of that coping that as a child got put into my brain, and here's these coping styles. I have a coping personality. We have a coping, whatever you want to call it, a coping pattern, a personality, a style. For the sake of this webinar, I'm going to call it your emotional coping style. And that emotional coping style influences all of our adult relationships. And here's just a few of our adult relationships: spouse, kids, our physical body, time, perfectionism. That's a relationship. Oh, we've been working on that one with some of my mentoring clients, and holy cow, your whole experience of life changes when you can change that relationship. Prosperity, extended family, food, parents, extended family, siblings, self-value, all of those still as well. And we could add so many more. So this is taking a toll. This emotional coping that helped me survive and make sure that people took care of me, because I didn't come with an owner's manual. I didn't even know how to read it if I had come with an owner's manual. And so I didn't come with an owner's manual, so I had to figure out how to survive. And so I took that on, but I didn't let go of it as an adult. We are not wired to automatically let go of our childhood coping so that we can step into adulting. I'm going to say it that way. You should write that down. That's kind of good. We're not wired to automatically let go of our childhood coping so that we can step into adulting. So most of us are walking around this planet not adulting. We're still coping. We're still coping. And so I'm going to say it one more time. We're not wired to automatically let go of our childhood coping and step into adulting. And so most of us are still walking around this planet coping instead of accomplishing. And so if you're ready to accomplish instead of cope, you need what we're talking about today. Yeah, you see people post all the time, I can't adult today. I can't do it. Okay. Oh, we have so much to get through. So let's jump into this. So there's evidence that we don't all have the same coping style. Because the coping, have you ever been triggered by a person? Have you ever encountered a person, then they just triggered you and they just made you go, some kind of emotional response, and you'd never met this person before? I had one of these I have to get tires. I have a tire on my car that we've been waiting for the new tires to come in. And while we've been waiting, the tire has started to show metal. It's dangerous. And so I'm talking to the guy at the tire store, and he's totally treating me like I'm this old person and like I don't understand things. And he's saying things like, well, there's an app, and an app, it's something that runs on your phone. Like I'm going to be somebody who's so old that I don't know what an app is, because he's like 19 years old. So he sees me as 120. And so it's totally triggering me. And I'm like, grr. But somebody next to me, they might feel like he's being totally respectful because he's like explaining things so well. And we're all, I need to watch this so many times to sink in. I know, right? This is why I'm teaching it, because it helps to sink it in when you teach it. And so I drew this for you to understand why some people trigger you and some people don't. Because I can have 3 people here and they all experience the same event. And this event doesn't trigger this person because they don't have any past coping that matches this trigger. So they'll just experience it. It won't trigger them. This next person doesn't have anything that matches either, but they're different. This person got certain coping from their growing up. This person got different coping. Oh, but now this third person, ouch, ooh, poke, ow, ooh, ooh. This person feels totally triggered by the event that's going on. And so this person's going to have an ununderstood. Yeah. Yes, thank you, Adam. This person has an ununderstood reaction to this event. And these people are looking at this third person going, why in the heck did that bother them? It's because a trigger is actually an experience in the present to help heal the past. When anybody triggers you, when an experience triggers you, when an event, when a person triggers you, this triggering experience in the present is a chance to heal the past, but only if you understand what's going on. So we need to be able to heal those experiences. But I gotta warn you right now. There's a reason why we often will avoid looking at these experiences from our past. And it has to do with judgment. So here's my parents. Love my parents. There's Donna Hendricks and Melvin Sanford. Those are my parents. And I know, right? Aw, those are my parents. And they were so beautifully messy. So beautifully messy. And I say that, and I'll even tell you, my parents are my heroes. My parents are my heroes because they chose to raise their children differently than they were raised. So my dad was raised in foster care. He was taken from his house when he was 3 years old. His mom didn't give him up. She just, they deemed her unfit because she did not know how to keep a house. She did not have a good relationship with stuff. In fact, when she died, that her house could have been on the Hoarders show because you could not walk into the house. It was so bad. I have a video of it somewhere on my computer. But she didn't know how to keep house. And so somebody turned her in and they came and took him and his brother and his sister. My dad was the youngest, and took them, and he was raised in foster care until he ran away from the system when he was 16 years old. My mom had a very different, strange childhood. Her mom had married her dad when he lost his first wife and had 7 little children. And so she had married this guy with 7 little children, and she didn't have my mom until 20 years later. Oh, I love that, Tammy. I was on my way to Hoarder City, and your clutter busting has me almost fully in order. Yay! My mom, before she died, she listened to all the things that I teach. I just got her as much as I could, and it totally changed her too, because our relationship with stuff on the outside comes from this emotional coping that we're talking about tonight. And so my parents are my heroes because they were raised in very messy environments, emotionally messy, physically messy, mentally messy, because they were raised by parents who had broken, do I want to call it broken? Ununderstood coping styles. That's what I'm going to call it. They had ununderstood. That's so hard to say. Ununderstood. I guess it's English. But they had ununderstood coping styles. And so they misunderstood. Thank you. I'm like, I know there's English, non-understood, misunderstood, ununderstood. I'm going to call it ununderstood because it was just, because you can't just say derstood, right? I can't just take the un off and say derstood. They had ununderstood coping patterns. I know we'll deal with making up words tonight. It helps your brain think of it differently if we make up words. So it's all good. But here's the problem. If I start labeling my mom and my dad, it will trigger my emotional coping patterns. And I will become afraid when I start labeling them. So watch, I'll do it right here. My mom was emotionally unavailable. She was fearful and very blaming. Now remember, they're my heroes, okay, you guys? I'm not pointing blame at them. My dad, he avoided his own emotions and had high expectations for me and for him, and was very interested in pleasing other people. But watch this. This surprised me when I made this slide. Watch. It changes our feel of these people. It like, you can like feel it. It like and probably more me than you, because these are my parents. But if you put your parents there and you started putting these labels on them, it totally triggers your intrinsic memory. And it can cause you to be afraid because here it was, aw, my parents. And here it's like, it triggers those emotional coping patterns. It's palpable. I mean, my skin is all prickly and I'm just like, oh, I don't know if I can breathe, because we worry, it triggers that child, because remember, my child wanted to survive. And so I don't want to at an executive function level, I don't want to look at my parents that way. I want them to care about me. I want them to be connected to me emotionally. And I never understood this when my dad didn't see his dad. I had never met his parents until he was 50 years old. So he was my age when I finally met his parents. And my youngest is in high school. So I was the oldest. So I was out of the house when I first met my dad's parents. And my dad had no contact with his dad. And the reason he had this contact at 50 years old, well, I'm not going to go into that story, but let's just say that it wasn't for my dad's benefit. It was because my grandpa wanted something. My grandpa did not have good emotional coping ability. He didn't. And my dad was always craving this relationship with his dad. And I was always going, why? Get somebody better to have a relationship with. But when I made this slide, I understood. Holy cow, you guys, because I could feel those intrinsic memories in the right side of my brain being triggered. We talk about all the emotions right here in our heart, right? But they're processed in that right side of our brain. And so I finally understood why my dad wanted that connection with his dad. It's because of an intrinsic need. He was only 3 years old when he was taken from his parents. And so he was still searching for that survival. That's really deep. Does that make sense? Are you guys following me? Keep commenting here so I know that we're making sense. Okay, cool. All right, excellent, excellent. So here's what happens. If I label them, I now feel like I have to label myself. And so I label myself as bad, but I don't want to label myself as bad. I want to thrive. I want to have a better, understanding and solve the problems and thrive as an adult. So I want to be able to take off this label. I don't want that label on me. And so one of the things, because I'm going to show you your coping patterns here, I'm going to show them to you. So I need you to understand that by talking about these coping patterns, we are not negatively labeling your parents. This isn't a label. This is an understanding. Because remember, your parents' coping styles were ununderstood by them. I guarantee it. Your parents' coping styles were ununderstood by them. Right? Just seeing that word, and it's not even your picture. Imagine if we put that on your picture. It's how we feel. But it's opportunity. Because you're an adult, Erica, because you're an adult, your brain is interested in solving the problem, in finding the pattern. So we aren't labeling, we are understanding. Okay, I need you to be clear on that. So raise your hand if you're clear on that. We are not labeling anyone. We are understanding. We have an agreement? I told you we'd only have one, but we're having a second one. We're not labeling. I'm not labeling me. I'm not labeling somebody else. We are understanding. Because we've got to do that in order to tip in fully into finding patterns and making choices. So now this always comes up. Oh, right, Tammy. She says, as a teenager, her daughter took a picture of herself and wrote all kinds of labels on her image. And it was heartbreaking, and because they were so sad. Yep, exactly. It's helpful to understand that there's a step in feeling emotion that happens in our brain before we feel it in our heart. That it's triggering those intrinsic memories. You probably experience this when you smell something that reminds you of something. Smell triggers intrinsic memory. It doesn't trigger our extrinsic conscious memory. Smells are triggering our intrinsic memories. So somebody always asks this. They always say, well, why would God allow this? Why would he allow us to be like this? Why would he allow us? Because why wouldn't God just make it so that we have our intrinsic memories as a child? In fact, I'm going to turn off my screen share for a second. Why wouldn't God just let us at our adult age just turn off that part of our brain and fully tip into our adult brain? Because it would be so much easier to accomplish good things in our life if we didn't have these coping programs going on behind the scenes. They are racket cycles that are going on, emotional racket cycles that are going on in our brain. And the reason why is because, hang on, I need to grab this right over here. Okay, so right here, I have two journals, and some of you might have seen these before. This is once was a beautiful journal. It's now missing its back. It's missing one of its little hooks, and every page is written on. All these pages are written on. Here is a brand new journal that has its beautiful gold on the side. All of the pages are blank. But which one of these journals is more valuable? The one that never had any breakage, that never had to do anything, or the one who has been filled with my life's learning for this year? This was my journal from the year 2015. So if you had your chance to hold one of these journals and look at it, which one would be more valuable? The one with nothing in it or the one with all these in it? This is exactly why we are wired to go through these experiences, because we come out better and stronger because of upgrading and because of upgrading our coping patterns. And so I love this. This is kintsugi. Okay, this is the Japanese art of they call it golden repair. And what it is they take broken pottery and they put it back together with gold inlays in where the breakage was. Oh shoot, all my windows closed. There we go. And have you guys ever seen this before? So in kintsugi or golden repair, they treat breakage and repair as part of the history of an object rather than something to disguise. It makes the object more beautiful, not less. And so this is the planet we're on. This is the planet we're on, is one that we need, listen to this, we need as an adult to go through a healing process. But in order to go through a healing process, we have to have something that needs to be healed. And the something that needs to be healed was absorbed by us when we were children. When our brain was in that sponge mode, it absorbed those programs directly into us. And oh, I love it. Sharon made one and has it sitting where she can see it. I love it. Oh yeah, I think that would be such a hoot to do that. And so this is what we're doing. This is what we're embarking on, is I'm showing you how to fill a crack in you with gold. With gold. Because you are meant to be stronger than you are. But the way you get stronger is by healing, is by upgrading, is by recognizing and changing a pattern. Okay, I got to say it one more time. The way you become a stronger, better version of you is by recognizing and changing a pattern in you. You should all write that down. I should write that down. I should write it in my journal, because when we write in our journals, it's beautiful. Somebody write it down for me. So the way we become a stronger, better version of ourselves is by recognizing a pattern and upgrading the pattern. So remember, at the beginning of this webinar, I said we're going to say why we have patterns. Do you now understand why you have patterns? You have patterns because it's the way your brain is wired to absorb the patterns. The patterns helped you because they helped the people around you keep you alive when you were helpless. When you had no ability to take care of yourself, those patterns helped you. As an adult, they hurt you because they caused you to repeat past behaviors that are not moving you forward. And I'm going to show you more of why they hurt you and how to recognize them in just a moment. But I need to know, are we on the same page? Oh, thank you for writing that. The way we become a stronger version of ourselves is by first recognizing our pattern and upgrading that pattern. Love it. Love it. So by now you probably recognize that I am passionate about helping people become better versions of themselves. By now you might be wondering if we can stay till midnight, because I have such great things to talk about. Because I've been working for a lifetime on upgrading me and sharing that with other people, because I'm somebody who doesn't want to just upgrade me. I want other people to be able to do it too. And some of my superpowers that I've been given a superpower of body language, but I've also been given a superpower of being able to take the complex and move it to the simple. Complex to simple, complex to simple. And so at the end of this webinar, because I'm sure by now you recognize that is my passion, at this end of this webinar, I'm going to be giving you an opportunity to book a phone call with me to find out if I could help you. Because I help people. This is my passion all day, every day. This is what I'm helping people with. I'm helping them become the golden repaired version of themselves. But I'm going to share that link with you right now because there's ways that you can work with me for 14 weeks in a group setting. There's ways that you can work with me for 6 months or a year, one-on-one, where I'm in your corner cheering you on, and I'm helping you every day with the things you run into as you're trying to upgrade these patterns. Because it doesn't matter what walk of life you're in, you have things that are keeping you spinning your wheels. And so you need time to decide if this phone call's for you. And so take a picture of this or type this URL into your computer and think about it, because I only have so many slots of where I can hold phone calls with people. I wish that I had more hours in my day, but I'm kept to the same 24 hours as everyone else. And so I want you to be able to have this link so that you will be able to book this call when you decide it's for you. And if you don't, that's fine. That's totally fine. But I bet you there's been times in your life that you've been wishing that there was somebody there that would help you, that somebody there that could understand you, that there was somebody that would help you with the struggling. And here I am. So will you go for it? I don't know. But I want you to be able to think about that while I teach you the rest of this webinar. Because raise your hand if you want to hear the rest of the things that I'm going to teach you about your patterns. Anybody interested? All right, awesome. Yes, this is so cool. All right. So do you have it? Do you have the link? So you either take a picture of this. What you do is you take your phone and you open your camera app so that it's on the camera, and you just point it at the screen, and a little button comes up that you push, and it'll open up the screen that will let you, there it is, that'll let you choose a time on my calendar. And so see, there's not a ton of times on my calendar, but there's a few of them. And then you click one of them, and it's going to ask you a few questions. And those questions are just so that I can get to know you. And then it's going to be me. I will be the one that calls you. So I wanted you to have this link while we talk about the rest of what we're going to talk about today, because it's so good. So who wants to be a golden repaired version of themselves? If you want to be a golden repaired version of yourself, raise your hand for me. Yes, love it, love it, love it. And I see some names here I recognize. You guys that have worked with me in the past, you probably can tell by now, you can tell that I keep working on me. I have upgraded me. I keep upgrading me. And so, you can tell people in the chat, yeah, watch out for Anne, steer clear of her. Or maybe you want to tell them, oh man, yes, it's so worth it. Here's some things that some people have said this week about mentoring with me. Because I always ask people, so what did you get out of our talk today? And this person says, my biggest takeaway from my session with Anne is how my hurt from my mom was being taken out on my spouse. I used to do that. Have you ever done that? Oh, so done it. The coaching session today was so helpful. I think I may have been able to release traumatic feelings that have been haunting me since I was 3 or 4 years old. Wow, I got more out of this one-on-one than I ever expected. And here's a few more. Today was a miracle. Oh my, where do I start? I loved being able to make sense of the mess in my head. Such a pleasure. I appreciate the time. Greatest takeaway today was that my stuck cycle and fears are a great opportunity to see the bigger picture and realize I am a problem solver. Okay, so come on, wouldn't you like to be able to say that same thing? Wow, I got more out of this than I ever expected. Because sometimes we need somebody, our patterns are comfortable. The coping patterns that I'm going to describe to you, the reason you hold on to them is because they're familiar, because they made it so that you survived as a child. So remember this feeling or this one where it was like, whoops. Remember what that felt like? We don't like that. And so we run away from it. And where do we run to? We run back to our emotional coping pattern. And so if you're tired of doing that, it's time to do something different. So have you seen the tear cycle before? You probably have all seen it. It's very famous in the self-help world. Thoughts and emotions lead to actions and results. This is our adult brain function purpose. Our adult brain. Kids still have to figure things out at the emotional side, but adults are the purpose of our adult brain is to go through this cycle. It is to go through this cycle. And the way I like to look at it is this cycle is it's like a tire on your car. It's moving you forward towards what you want. We all have to go through thoughts and emotions and choose our actions based on our emotions and our results. But Anne, you just got through telling me that as a child, I had all these coping patterns. Yeah. So look at what the bigger picture is of this movement. This by itself, the tear cycle, is forward movement. It moves us forwards towards whatever we choose. As humans, one of the coolest things is we can choose any direction we want to move forward to. And that tear cycle is how you turn your wheels and move towards your goal. Oh, I love that. Oh, Robin, it's so good to see you. I did one-on-one mentoring with Anne 6 years ago. Still one of the most impactful experiences of my life. Love it. Thank you, Robin. So this is how the tires of your car move. But what nobody tells you is at the emotion, because it starts here, thoughts go to emotions. The emotions is where our coping styles will hijack our movement forward. Our emotion, at the emotion right here, just like I showed you getting triggered on those pictures when I was labeling myself and my parents, it will cause me to go into a backwards cycle of a coping pattern. And I might get stuck in this cycle and spin my wheels. And so look, I called it right here, the collision of two brains. This is the collision of the child and the adult brain. So if you've ever tried to work towards a goal and you just felt like your face came right up against a wall, what was going on is you were having that collision. You were experiencing the collision of your adult and your child brain. Those two were in conflict. And so it looks like this. Coping patterns will derail our forward movement, and it feels like spinning our wheels. So I love this slide. Watch what I figured out how to do here. See if I can do it. So look, if I'm not in my forward movement, then I am in a coping movement. And as I spin my wheels, it can't move forward. And it can't go backwards because we can only live in a forward timeline. So my wheel won't go back into my past. So it sits and spins and spins and spins. Have you ever been stuck in the snow and your wheels just spin, or the sand or the mud, depending on what your adventure level is? You can be stuck in the mud when you're four-wheeling, or you can be stuck in the sand when you're on a dune buggy. You can be stuck in the snow when you're in Idaho or Utah. And that spinning causes us to spin a circle into the ground, and we make a depression, and it causes us to start to feel depressed. Is that cool? I'm really proud of that slide. So I'm just gonna be really proud for a minute. Is that okay? It's not easy. If you think it's easy to make slides, you should try it. It's not easy, but I thought it was pretty cool. My husband and I sat and worked on that one last night. I was like, it'd be really cool if I could make it go down into a depression, because that's what happens in our lives. That's what it feels like. And so it's not that we're moving backwards. We can't. We're spinning in our cycle. We're spinning in our cycle, and the more we spin, the deeper the rut. The more we spin, the deeper the rut. And the deeper the rut, the more the depression. the more the depression. And so we're sitting here spinning, 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 and not moving forward. And so how do I get out of this? Well, remember, I told you that your adult brain, yeah, our rut can feel deep and frustrating and inescapable. And so give me a word, everybody. What's the word that it feels like when you get stuck in this depression? What's the word? What does it feel like? R. Shelton says deep. It can feel tiring. It can feel depressing. It can feel inescapable, lonely, sad, overwhelmed, hopeless, powerless, hard. Great words, you guys. Pick a word. There's no right or wrong, but pick a word and write it down. Back where I started, confusing, the head hurricanes. Cindy, I love how your brain works. That's awesome. Dark, overwhelming, heavy. I promise you, you guys, you want to pick a word. And I'll show you why that's so important. But pick a word. There's not a right one, but choose what it feels like. Lisa, yes, useless. Yeah, Lisa, when are you and I going to work together? I've talked to you before. Trapped, hopeless. Oh, you guys, good words. Black and unyielding, blind. Excellent, you guys. Awesome picking words. Because our brain, our adult brains function. So our child brain, we still have a child brain that we're keeping with us if we're in any kind of coping spinning cycle. Your adult brain, good one, Laura, death. Shauna, good, shame. Jennifer, I love that one, blind. Oh, yeah. We just, and it helps to be able to read other people's words because it helps to trigger our executive function. Remember, I told you that the right side of the brain doesn't deal in words. So when you can put a word on it, it actually helps engage the left side of your brain. So that's why I'm waiting for you to pick your word because I want you to engage that left side of your brain. And so our adult brain is wired to solve problems, to see patterns, and to make choices. So we got to be able to find our patterns. So who's seen this before? If you've seen it, don't tell anybody else about it, but we're going to go through a little pattern activity right here. All right. And so what I want you to do is I'm going to time you. Let me get my timer out here on my phone. I know, there it is. Okay, I found my buttons. Okay, I got my stopwatch. What you're going to do is there's the numbers on here start at 1 and they go to 90. And I want you to start at 1 and on your screen or on your phone, I want you to touch the number. Okay, I want you to touch the number. And I'm going to give you 15 seconds and I want to see how many numbers you can get to. And you start with number 1. Make sense? Okay, are you ready? Start with 1 and see how many you can get to in 15 seconds. On your mark, get set, go. Stop. Okay, what number did you get to? Type it in the chat. What number did you get to? And don't worry, it's not a contest. 4, 6, 1, 1. I love it. 12, 9, 4, 11. Good job. So now, what if I told you that there's a pattern? Your brain wants to see the pattern. Can I say that enough times? Your brain wants to see the patterns. So see the little tick marks right here? See these little tick marks? If you imagine drawing a line across those 2 tick marks and from the top to the bottom across those tick marks, you would make 4 quadrants on the paper. And now with the 4 quadrants, I'm going to tell you that the pattern, the number 1 is in the first quadrant. The number 2 is in the second quadrant. The number 3 is in the third quadrant. And the number 4 is in the 4th quadrant. Guess where the number 5 is? It's back in the 1st quadrant. So it goes like this. You're just going to find the numbers in a figure 8 pattern. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there's a pattern. Do you see the pattern? Okay, so now I'm going to time you again, and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to touch your screen where the number is. And we're going to see if you get further in this 15 seconds. So ready? You remember where they are? 1st quadrant, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Okay, on your mark, get set, go. Stop. Okay, put your new number in the chat and tell me, was it higher? Did you get a higher number? Oh, look at the numbers now. 16, 14, 15, 17, way higher. 19, 17, 14. Okay, you guys got to way higher numbers because you saw the pattern. Isn't that cool? I love it. Shane, mind blown. Yeah, when we can see the pattern, we now, when we can see the pattern, we now engage the adult functions of our brain. But one of the kinds of patterns we've got to see is our child emotional coping style. Does that make sense? Okay, so before I show you, I'm going to show you, well, let me rewind that word. There are 5, from what I've studied in psychology, and I've read a few books and I checked with the neuroscientists, there are 5 basic patterns that people get stuck in. Now, you can be a combination of a couple of patterns, and your patterns determine your triggers. Your patterns determine your triggers. And so I'm going to show you, but of those 5 patterns, most of the people in the self-help world are going to be in one of 3 of those patterns. So I'm going to focus on those top 3 patterns. And if time permits, I can't believe it's already 8:30. Can't we stay till midnight? Anybody else wish we could stay longer? Am I the only one? Raise your hand if you wish we could stay longer. Okay, good. This is good stuff, right? This is so good. So I'm going to focus on those 3. If time permits, I'll show you the last 2. Or just highlight them, but the top 3 are the ones I want to focus on. And so in order to do that, oh, whoops, that's just my note to self. Let me turn that off. I'm supposed to tell you a story right here. And so let me tell you a quick story. Story time. Woo-hoo! When I was 10 years old, I grew up in the old days where people could let their 10-year-old ride their bicycle across town. Anybody else growing up in those days? Now it's like you see a 10-year-old out on their bicycle and people call the cops. It's like, why is that child by themselves? And it's like, really? Okay, anyway, that's a totally separate tangent. But anyway, I was 10 years old and I was riding my bike all the way across town to go to the park where I was signed up. I was going to get to go through an obstacle course. Super excited. I was so excited. And as I was riding my bike, I was on this road, and my friend, because she was also growing up in the same time, was sitting in the bed of the truck of her dad's car. And so she was in the back of the truck and I was on my bike, and she's like, we're going to beat you. And so now we were racing, right? So I'm going as fast as I can and I'm focused on her in the bed of that truck, and I'm driving my bike down this road. And I see her and she starts to pull ahead of me, and I'm like, oh no. And all of a sudden, a car that was parked on the side of the road opened their car door right in front of me. And I was going as fast as I possibly could. And literally, they hadn't looked in their rearview mirror or anything. They just opened their door, and I couldn't do anything. And I slammed into this door, pedaling full blast. And I was knocked out cold. And I don't mean like for a second. I was knocked out cold. And it was for a while, because this happened to be, as fate would have it, it happened to be right in front of a doctor's office. And this lady who had opened her car door worked at this doctor's office. And so they didn't know who I was. I didn't have ID on me. I didn't have ID. The only thing I had in my hands was I was carrying some coins my mom had given me to be able to buy a snow cone after my obstacle course. They weren't even in my pocket. I was holding them, do you remember anybody else ever 10 years old and they did something like that? And so when I woke up, I was in this doctor's office. I was in one of the rooms and I had no clue where I was. And also, crazy true story, they let me leave. I was like, I'm late for my obstacle course. And they're like, okay. I mean, maybe they didn't want to get in trouble. I don't know, but they let me leave. And I tried to walk because my bike crumpled, wouldn't work. I tried to walk to this obstacle course and I couldn't do it. I was super dizzy. I did not feel good. So I went back into the doctor's office and I asked them to call my dad. And so my dad came and I'm like, can I lay down in the room again? And they're like, no, our rooms are full. And I'm like, okay. So I went out and I went over because I remembered I forgot my coins. And I went and I found them. I found a couple of them laying on the ground and I picked them up. And then I went and I sat down in the grass. And I remember I was so weak. I couldn't hold on to this one dime that I had found. And I was like, if I open my hand, I'll lose it in the grass. And I'm like, I'm too weak. I can't do it. And so as I'm sitting there and I'm so weak that I can't even hold on to this dime, my dad comes and he's talking to this lady whose car door had opened in front of me. And what I was expecting him to do was to tell this lady, stick up for me and say, you should have looked. You shouldn't have opened your car door before looking. That's what I expected. But what I heard was my dad saying, is your car door okay? Is it going to be okay? And I am passing out on the grass and no one is paying attention to me. No one's paying attention to me. And I am hurt and I don't have strength. I don't know how to think straight. And my dad is asking if her car is okay. And I remember this moment because this is a point where I firmly believe it's one of the reasons I adopted the coping style that I did, because I was so frustrated in that moment that I wasn't being considered. And it wasn't from a place of selfishness. It was from a place of actual fear for my abilities to think or even to move. And I was scared. I was so scared. But in that moment that I was so scared, my dad was worried about her door. And I still remember this. I can remember her saying, well, it opens a little extra now, but I think it'll be okay. And I'm like, people, look at me. Did you ever have that moment when you were a child where you felt much bigger than the little body you were in? I was a 10-year-old, but man, I felt way bigger than that. And I was like wanting to yell that, hey, people, look at me. Look at me. I'm not okay. I'm not okay. And so have you ever had, do you remember an experience like that? That it was like, oh my gosh, they care more about a car door than they do about me. And looking back, I realized that my dad was behaving off of his coping style. He was behaving off of his coping style. And I was adopting mine. And so I just want you to, so I'm going to tell you one more quick story. So now fast forward, I was pregnant with my fourth child. And I had taken my 3 older children to McDonald's. And I was I felt really strange, and I knew I was going to pass out. And so I tried to get up to tell my oldest child, but he was only like 7, that I would not to worry because I was going to pass out. And I passed out, and I was out for a while because I woke up in the ambulance. I woke up in this ambulance, and I wasn't fully coherent, but I remember the people in the ambulance, they were talking, and they're like, "Who's that car that's following us through the red lights? Oh, is that her husband? Can you guys get a policeman to pull him over and tell him not to follow us through the red lights?" And in that moment, I should have been in a place. Well, do I want to tell you that yet? I don't want to tell you that yet. Suffice this to say, I couldn't even open my eyes, but I was having an emotional response to that whole interaction. I was having an emotional trigger. Yes, total trigger. Yeah, see, you guys can totally relate. You're like, when I was 16, when I was 4, when I was this, we have these experiences that are total emotional triggers, but they're intrinsic memories. Because I have some when I was so young that I remember when I was 2 years old and I cut the end of my thumb off in a door. See how it's a little shorter than the other thumb? See, it's just a little. But I remember absorbing that experience at an intrinsic level. So let's look at how we will respond to these kinds of experiences. So I got to go back here just a minute. We only have 18 minutes. I got to go back to this and remind you, remember, we're making sense out of our world so that we can survive. We want the people around us to help us survive. We want that, okay? So remember, that's our come from. So the first emotional coping style that I'm going to talk about, because remember, this is what they're going to look like, and they cause this depression. So the first one I'm going to call, and in psychology, you'll see different ways of naming these, but I'm going to call this an avoidance coping style. And what the avoidance is, it's an avoidance to emotions, okay? And the false belief that is happening inside of us is that emotions separate me from others, and emotions are meant to be controlled and hidden. So somebody who, you think I should share my screen? I just pointed at like 5 screens. Okay, I'm way too excited. Calm down, Ann. This is okay. Share your screen. Thank you, who was that? Where's my mouse? Where's my chat? There we go. Thank you. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Tammy. Okay, so let me run through that really quick again. So remember, our coping styles happen because we are wanting to survive. We are wanting the people in our life to take care of us, okay? And so then remember, this is how I've chosen to draw it. That if I am fully in my healthy adult movement forward, I'm going to be in this cycle and I'll be moving down the path of my life. I will be moving forward. Woohoo! Moving forward, towards my goals. That's what I want. But sometimes my forward movement gets hijacked by my coping patterns. And the first coping pattern I'm going to talk about is this one. I call it the avoidance coping style. And the false belief that is triggering this pattern is that emotions separate me from others, and emotions are meant to be controlled and hidden. And so remember, it is, instead of, emotions are meant to be fuel that cause action that moves me forward towards results. And so the E right here, the emotions, is the place where I can either go into my tear cycle and go around and have forward movement, or the emotional coping pattern can get triggered and put me over here into a coping pattern. So that's why the E right here is the place where we can tip into the coping pattern. Did that make more sense, Jane? Yes. That E right there is because the E is where I tip into it. Yes, thank you for helping me clarify that. So right here, you'll see the E on every one of these cycles because the emotion is where I will get stuck in here. So for people that avoid emotions, these are people who they had family members that it wasn't safe to show emotions around, or they had parents who would say, hey, go to your room until you can come out with your happy face again. Or you're supposed to, when you cry, you go somewhere else. Don't cry in front of people. Emotions are unsafe or bad, or it's shameful to have emotions. So somebody who has this coping style, they will suppress their emotions or feel bad for feeling. They'll feel bad for feeling emotions. Yeah, stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about. And so they will separate themselves from others, or they will over control some aspect of their life. Okay, they'll separate themselves or they will over control. So maybe they'll over control the order in their house. They will over clean everything, or they will over exercise, or they will over something because they're trying to not feel emotions. Okay, they're trying to not feel the emotions. The problem is now, as they've suppressed and separated, they pressure cook. They will either pressure cook, and what I mean by pressure cook is they'll stuff all their emotions until they just pop out somewhere, and then they feel really bad for the emotions popping out. Or they will superimpose their emotions on somebody else. Or they might be passive aggressive, the people that can send darts at you with a smile on their face. It's like, oh, you're such a terrible person. That kind of person. Or they're not allowed to enjoy their emotions. This came up in one of my mentoring appointments yesterday. I was talking to somebody that she's like, well, I can't be somebody who avoids my emotions because I cry and I let people see me cry. And I say, okay, but listen to what you just did. I had just asked her, tell me about your week. What happened in your week? And she told me this list of things that had happened in her week. And in the middle of it, she quickly glossed over this huge accomplishment that she had. So she's a public speaker and she had this huge new client that she just signed up. And she's like, well, I had this trouble with my husband and I had this and I signed up this new client and then this happened and this happened. And I timed her. And she went on for 14 minutes before I stopped her and said, wait a second. What are you avoiding? She's like, nothing. And I said, okay, so tell me about this fact that you just signed up this client and that was your goal that you wanted to do. Why did you skip that? And she's like, oh, I didn't even realize I'd done that. And as we talk, she's like, oh, I'm not allowed to enjoy my emotions. So I don't skip all of my emotions, but I'm not allowed to enjoy my emotions. And as we talk, we helped her come to the realization that she's afraid of success and failure because she can't feel the emotions of them. It's not okay to feel the emotions. And so do you know anybody that has any of an avoidance coping style, that they will suppress their feelings, or they think it's shameful to have feelings, or they will separate themselves? Oh, I've lost my hands. Okay, so raise your hand if you know anybody like that. And it could be you or it could be somebody else. Right? Exactly. Yep. Okay. Yeah. And so we avoid all of the emotions. But the truth is, life is a beautiful messy. And what we can feel, we can heal. So when we can see a pattern, that's when we can kick in to our executive function of the left side of our brain, and we can start to upgrade. Okay, because let me go back really quick. Let me go back to this, because isn't it starting to click? Oh, I guess I should say this. Let me lower your hands. Is this starting to click for you? Raise your hand if it's starting to click. Okay, there's a bunch of you that is starting to click for. Excellent. Because it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful to be able to tip in and actually use the tools of my adult brain. My adult brain wants to find the pattern, make a choice, and upgrade from the child way of coping so that I can thrive. And the way I get to thrive is with forward movement towards what I actually want. Yeah, you can totally be afraid of both success and failure at the same time. And it doesn't have to make sense. Remember the whole intrinsic memory thing? Because it's an intrinsic memory, I don't have words to put on it. And so that's why we say it doesn't make sense. It's not because it doesn't actually make sense. It's because there's nothing in my left side of my brain to understand it. It's an intrinsic memory. Right? You just described my dad to me, and my mind is excited as I feel my body try to hold my excitement back. Jacob, right? So there's a piece of that avoidance in you. Yeah, and so this will help you understand other people too, because they are actually, most of the time, people aren't actually trying to trigger you. Most of the time, they're trying to deal with their own coping and they don't know what to do about it. Okay, most of the time. And so this is what people in an avoidance style, this reminds me of them. I may look strong on the outside, but on the inside, my tummy hurts. My son found this meme for me, and I thought it was really good, because when we avoid emotions, we don't want to feel them. And so what they come out as is pain in our stomach or in our body somewhere, or anxiety. Our body serves us. And so it will go through pain so that we won't have to feel or acknowledge an emotion. That's kind of deep. Okay, we got it. What? It's 9 o'clock. All right, we're going to go a few minutes over, you guys. I'm sorry. Are you okay with that? We're going to go a few minutes over, because if not, I'm not going to be able to get through all of these. All right, so the next one is the please others coping style. So for them, the false belief is my world will be okay when others feel okay. So this was what was going on with my dad when he was asking this lady about her car door. And as I've studied this, I've realized this has been my dad. He always wanted to please other people. But people who are pleasing others are skipping over themselves. I had a mentoring appointment yesterday with a wonderful lady where we drew this out for her, that she's always skipping over herself in favor of taking care of others. And so she never feels like she has the right or the ability to take care of anything she needs to do. And so the trigger, the emotional trigger, it connects to safety has come in my past from how others feel. So how my caregivers felt. So I have a little bit of pleaser in me that I learned from my parents, because my life was better if I took care of other people's emotions. I was taught that if other people were upset at home or elsewhere, that it was my job to help them feel better. And until they felt better, I wasn't doing my job. So if you know anybody like that, raise your hand. If you've ever interacted with somebody like that, right? And the way you'll know it is if it's one of your kids that's adopted a pleasing style, you'll notice that they will do emotional temperature taking, or maybe it's your spouse. And all the time they're asking you how you are. How are you doing? Because they're trying to figure out how they're doing, because they don't feel their own emotions. They feel your emotions instead of their own. So they skip their own emotions and feel yours. And so they're taking the other person's emotional temperature. Am I okay? I'm going to find out by asking you if you're okay. Then they try to fix the other person's emotions through their actions. Or I try to fix, this person tries to fix the other person's emotions through their actions. Okay. The result is a buildup of guilt, anxiety, frustration, and they might even experience panic attacks. I have somebody that I work with that he was experiencing panic attacks, but he didn't know what they were. He didn't know what was going on. And so we started unraveling this for him, and we realized that he has a pleasing coping style, that he skips his own emotions, that he feels his responsibility is to take care of other people. And so since he doesn't know how to put words on his emotions, they're starting to come out as little panic attacks where he's like, well, I can't breathe. And it was like, my stomach's tight. And I'm like, oh, your emotions are wanting to be felt. So the false belief is take care of others' emotions. The truth is, it's safe to take care of and feel my own emotions. And if I don't, then because this is why they don't. They're afraid that this will happen. So let's see if this will work. Ooh, I hope it works. See that response? They're afraid that if their own emotions come out, this is what will happen. And they're scared of their own emotions. They're scared of them. They don't want to have to try to feel their own emotions. Okay, so yeah, I already asked you, right? So if that describes somebody in your life or somebody you've met or yourself, raise your hand for me so I know that you can relate to that. If we don't know what we feel, we don't know what we need. Yes, you can have pieces of more than one style, Tammy. And sometimes we'll learn to adapt our style based on the person we're talking to. But yeah, I've got 2 sons that are this coping style. But if we don't know what we feel, we don't know what we need. Okay, so this next one, I call it the back and forth. And this one is me, okay? I have some pleaser, but this one is me 12 years ago. It's not me anymore. It's not me anymore. I read in a psychology book a term called a secure connector. And a secure connector is somebody who has healed enough of their coping styles that they can make choices to move forward in the present. And that's where I am now. Now, can I tip into this once in a while? Absolutely. But let me tell you about this volatile style. So this person, their false belief is that they create a fairy tale in their mind of what life will be like when life is good. They create this fairy tale. And the false belief is that when the fairy tale happens, all will be made right. Everything will be okay in my life when the fairy tale happens. And this style comes from an unpredictable connection with your caregivers when you're growing up. So remember I said that my mom and my dad that my mom was emotionally unavailable and that my dad had high expectations. I was never sure where I stood at an emotional level. I never was. And so because of that, I adopted this style. I wanted connection, but because it's unpredictable, I created these fairy tales believing that complete fulfillment or complete connection will be had when I arrive at the fairy tale. So it's the whole knight in shining armor, or the whole, when I achieve this goal, everything will be good. But the problem is this kind of person has become disconnected from their own emotions. They don't allow themselves to feel sad. They substitute anger or mad for sadness. This was so me 12 years ago. And so because of that, they become very black and white. things are they're either good or they're bad. I put superlatives here. Superlatives are words like always or all or none or never. Yes, right, Jacob? Good one. Okay, so these are, so for me, this is exactly me. I would just check out. When people didn't match my fairy tale, I didn't know I was doing this, but I would emotionally check out. I'm like, fine, whatever. Whole bunch of throwing my hands up. Am I the only one? Maybe I'm the only one like this. But it's all the time. I'm done. I give up. You're bugging me. Nothing will ever get better. And it causes contention and friction with our spouse, especially, because it's like they never match the fairy tale because they're dealing with their own coping style. And so because they're dealing with their own coping style, they can never match your fairy tale. Fairy tales are fairy tales because they cannot be manifest into life. Where true fulfillment comes from is, okay, I'm going to have to skip forward here a little bit. Where true connection comes from is when I can allow other people to feel their own emotions in my presence. So a healthy connection with another person, because all of these coping styles will cause me to not have fully healthy connections with other people. And so I had to come up with my own definition of what is a healthy connection. And my definition is allowing others to be able to feel their own emotions in my space without me being triggered or them being triggered. I'm a safe place. So it's like my mom taught me. She said, you got to create an atmosphere of love and acceptance where people feel safe to learn and grow. So it's the same thing. I've got to create, I can create that space by working on my responses to emotional coping patterns. Because as long as I continue to give others the power to make me feel acceptable, the more outlet I will need for the emotions that build up inside of me. Right? This is the time to take one of those breaths. So this person, they become so full of resentment that they can't receive or forgive, and they enjoy playing the martyr. They feel like everything's happening to them, that other people need to change, that they know best. So the truth is, there's a whole spectrum of emotions that are safe to feel. And life is a series of opportunities to feel and heal. And so here's the picture I thought fit this style really well. I'm always right. And even when I'm wrong, I'm right. Thank you for spelling it right. I never claimed to be good at spelling. That's why it has a little red squiggly line under it, right? Because I didn't spell it right. There we go. Thank you. Okay. And so have you found yourself in any, or anybody around you in any of those coping styles? Raise your hand if you have. Oh, good. Oh, good. Oh, good. Oh, good. Our brain loves default, and these coping patterns are our default. They're our default, and our brain loves default, but growth does not exist in default. So our brain loves default, and growth doesn't exist in default, because instead of growth, what am I doing? I am digging myself a hole. So I've got to change. I got to change. We got to upgrade the way that we are responding to emotional triggers in our life. We got to upgrade that. And so remember, forward movement is this way. Coping patterns are going the other way. And so I need to be able to exit this pattern. I need to be able to exit it. And so I, as I was pondering this, I came up with this way of explaining it. And so what we're going to call it is the exit of the coping cycle. Because if I catch myself in here, I got to get out of here and back into forward movement, because this is going to happen. just so you know, it's going to happen. Every person on the planet has their forward movement hijacked by emotional coping styles. All of them. All of them. I am willing to say 100% of the people on the planet will have their forward movement hijacked by coping patterns. Okay. Now, I just heard somebody go, yeah, but what about people who are damaged in an accident or they have birth defects? Or okay, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who are trying to move forward and be better in their lives. Yes, so if I'm not moving forward, can I assume I'm stuck in a coping pattern? Yes, you can. You can. And the reason why is because being in that coping pattern is giving me a chance. Remember what I said back here? Every triggering experience in the present is a chance to heal the past. It's a chance to add another vein of gold in the person that you are. It's a golden repair opportunity. That's what it is. And so this exit that I'm not going to talk about very long because we don't have any time left, this is the golden repair. See my gold color here? This is the golden repair opportunity. And so we got to exit. So our letters, it starts in the emotion, right? So I need to X-ray. X-ray means I need to notice what's underneath. I need to notice what's underneath. And then the next thing I need to do is identify. Remember, the left side of my brain has to do with words. It's the executive function reasoning. And so I need to put a name to what I'm feeling. So I need to name the emotion. I feel this, and give it a name. And if you give it a name out loud, even better, because speech is that left executive side of the brain as well. And then that brings us to the T, which is talk. We have to speak it out loud. Well, have to. There's no have tos. But if we want to be able to upgrade, we can speak it out loud. And what you speak is these two things. I feel this, and I need this. So whether you talk to somebody else and you're heard, or whether you're out talking to a tree or your steering wheel, if you can say those words, I feel this and I need this, because what I can feel when I know how I feel, I can know what I need. Does that make sense? And so that's how I can exit this pattern. So then what do? I make a new choice and go this new way. I go back into my forward movement. So exit. If I catch myself over here, examine what's underneath. What am I stuck in? What triggered me? Identify the emotion that I felt and say things out loud. Now, when I have done this, oh my gosh, I have worked on myself for 12 straight years now. And before that, I wanted to work on myself, but I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to do it. And having worked on myself so much, when I work with other people, I can quickly help them see what the spinning is so that they can get out of the spinning. Because our life isn't just about achieving goals. It's about the person we become while we're achieving those goals. In fact, in breakthrough coaching, just the Monday before last, I explained, let's see if I can find this really quick. I explained why we set goals and how setting those goals helps us to find our emotional styles. Because, hang on, let me find this really quick. Breakthrough coaching. Right here. Oh, I didn't have to stop sharing my screen. I could have kept my screen there. All right. And so it looks like this. On Monday before last, I spent 2 hours explaining why we set goals and how those goals help us to identify the pattern that we're stuck in. So let's put it right here. And so it looked like this. And I helped them understand that the person we're becoming while we're accomplishing this goal is way more valuable than just the goal. And so this is why, as an adult, I want to be able to be moving forward towards what I choose. I want it, whether that's an upgraded relationship, whether that's opening my own business, maybe it's becoming a speaker, maybe it's improving the relationship that I have with my children or my spouse or my neighbors. Whatever your goal is, we're meant to do this, but we will get hijacked and we need to know what to do different. And so any of you that are on here that are in breakthrough coaching, can you tell them, was that valuable to talk about that? Renee, hi Renee. Okay, Renee asks, what are the last 2 coping styles? All right, I'll tell you those in just a minute, but I'm not going to explain them very deeply. I'll just show you them, because most people, Renee, you might run into people who run into these coping styles, but the majority of people, we're going to be part of these first 3. So you can take, so let me go. So I'll show them to you in just a second. Okay. Somebody else asked, Lillian. Okay, Renee, Lillian, hang on, and I'll show them to you. So if I am willing to exit my cycle, I will find that I'll get stuck trying to exit, and it can be frustrating. And so it can be helpful. You can take, this is the way my husband said, I showed him these slides and he's like, oh, this is really good, because and I wrote it down. He said, you can take your generation or 2 to figure this out on your own. Or he said, you should tell people they can skip a whole generation of pain by having someone help you who's already figured this out and having them help you. And so it looks like this, right? When you have somebody help you that's worked on this, your steps become shorter. You get to the goal faster. And so I loved my husband's word. You can skip a whole generation of pain by having somebody help you who's already figured this out. Right? Renee's like, I can ask about this in class, but I'll show everybody. So that brings us back to this. So do you want somebody to help you? Do you want to know what that looks like? Because here's some things that you can check in with. Do you have any coping pattern language? Oh, I can do it tomorrow, or I can't change, or it's too late for me, or it's not my fault, they're the problem. Or I'll wait till somebody else fixes this. Or, oh, I already said it's too late for me. The world will end tomorrow anyway. Or I need someone to save me. This isn't about that. If you have any of that language, don't listen to it. Are you ready to improve your generation now? Or are you going to let that go to your kids? Are you going to wait and let your kids figure this out instead of you? So I have a passion for this. And I used to teach a class called Break Free Intensive, where I would have people come up on stage for the whole multi-days of the event, and I would mentor them on stage in front of everyone else. I also used to do group mentoring and personal mentoring. And I'm like, okay, since the COVID world, why don't we, right? Online Break Free was amazing. And so I created a new program called Breakthrough Coaching that incorporates the best parts of Break Free Intensive and the best parts of group mentoring and even the best parts of personal mentoring into one environment that lasts for 14 weeks. So this is a 14-week made for you program. It's got some pre-recorded modules, but it also has weekly live training. So weekly, every single Monday, I am on live where you can ask me questions and I will answer them. And you can turn on your video and I will help you based on what I see in your body language. Because I guarantee you, I had somebody this morning who contacted the office and asked if they could just purchase a single appointment with me. And the office was like, okay, you can do that. And this morning we met. And so we'd never met each other before. She had found me online. She'd never done anything with 3 key elements. And she's like, I don't even know what to ask you, but I heard that you're a body language expert. And so I figured you would figure it out. And at the end of our appointment, because we met on Zoom one-on-one like this, at the end of the appointment, she's like, holy cow, this is all the things I didn't know that I needed. And I'm like, yes, that's what it is. That's my intention, is for you to get to skip that slow grinding, figuring things out generation over generation. And as we're moving to where we want to be, there's messy in the middle. And having support during that messy in the middle is powerful. And so if you've been struggling for years and you're like, I wish someone would help me, here I am. Book a phone call. And you can ask me about personal mentoring, because I have 3 people that are finishing up their personal mentoring this month. So I've got some openings. And I haven't had an opening in personal mentoring for 6 months. And so I have some openings right now. And so maybe that's because it's your time. It's time for you to be there. Or let's talk about breakthrough coaching. And I'll teach you about the 14 weeks and I'll answer your questions about it. Look at what some other people have said. Life-changing, new hope. I'm facing my future. This is so profound, it makes me cry with happiness. It's like hiring a plumber for your soul. Okay, so it's time. It's time. It's just time. Our world needs more upgraded, emotional, stable people on this planet. And so it's time. So I just want I want to tell you this. Don't get stuck in the E. Happiness is, not happiness, happiness too, but happiness and healthiness is being willing to exit the coping cycle and complete the tear cycle over and over again. Okay? No matter our history, all of us must finally face our fears and decide to take risks and grow. So what are you waiting for? I don't have very many slots in my calendar. And so take one of those slots. Book a phone call with me. If you're even thinking about it a little bit, book a phone call with me, because healthiness involves taking risks and moving forward after failure or success. Don't get stuck on the E. Don't get stuck. And so I'll tell you what, the people that join Breakthrough Coaching this weekend, if you book a call, you got to be one of the first people to book the call, because this offer is only for the first 5 people. And last time I did this offer, there were 12 people that took advantage of this offer. So if you're one of the first 5, I'm going to add 2. I'm going to gift you. I'm going to invest in you. I'm going to invest in you 2 one-on-one mentoring appointments. I'm going to invest in you. And so if you sign up for Breakthrough Coaching, you get the 14 weeks with me. You get the pre-recorded modules, you get the live training, you get to access me to help you break out of your patterns. You get all of that. And in addition to that, the first 5 people will get 2 one-on-one mentoring appointments where it's just you and me. We meet, you and me, one-on-one. And so book your phone call. Because if you're somebody who's watched me do webinars and you're like, yeah, maybe sometime, it's now. It's now. It's time to break out of your pattern. It's time to change your cycle. Don't stay stuck. Don't stay stuck. So the last 2 coping styles. So one of them is I call the control coping style. So this is a person who has in their life, they've had so much fear. They've had so much, my dad could have been one of these people, but he chose to break out of this pattern. They refuse to ever be that scared or hurt again. So their fear causes, they overprotect their fear. And so they overwhelm people around them with aggression and scariness because connection is not safe. It's not safe. And so they need to come to terms with the suffering that they have felt in their past. And the other one is they call the victim coping style, or I call it the victim coping style. And the false belief there is that they possess no power, that they are completely worthless. And so they've never been allowed boundaries, and they've tolerated the intolerable. So they give their power away. They're passive with no opinion and insecure and won't speak up. So the truth is, confidence can be learned through practice. But what I want you to leave with is this. I have exited my pattern time and time and time and time and time again. And sometimes when I've tried to help my children, it's fallen on deaf ears. And I have felt like that they would never have the chance to upgrade, that they would never change. But about a month ago, my son came in and yeah, Renee, I thought you would. In about a month ago, my son came into my room at midnight, and he goes, "Mom," and he's 24, and he was here visiting me, and he comes in and he goes, "Mom, I just want to thank you." And I'm like, "What for?" And he goes, "I want to thank you for doing all the work on you, because I see how much you've changed. I see how much you've changed over the course of my life." And he goes, "I just want to thank you for upgrading you." And I was like, oh, even if he's not willing to listen to what I want to teach, he sees the change in me. And so if you're tired of spinning your wheels, let me help you. Book a phone call. If you're tired of seeing people around you spin their wheels, but you're tired of seeing them not changing, you can't change them. But I can show you how to upgrade things in you that will help them feel like they have more permission to upgrade them. Don't stay stuck. Don't stay stuck. Get out of your coping patterns. As I've been able to do this, I got an opportunity just this last weekend. I have 4 sons, so I often say my son, but it's different sons all the time. My son and my husband both had an emotional chance to go into their coping styles. But because I wasn't triggered, I would have in the past. I would have been triggered and gone, "I give up, why try, not worth it." But I didn't. And so because I could hold my space and allow them to feel their emotions without feeling responsible for their emotions, I was able to help both my husband and my son get through to the other side of their emotions. And here's the secret, you guys, when you get to the other side of those emotions, you now have engaged that executive side of your head and you're upgrading. You are moving down that path. And both my son and my husband got to do that this week, not because they knew anything about this, because they don't, but because I was able to not go into my rut. Quit entering the rut. It's time to exit. So be brave, take a chance, book a phone call. Let's talk about it. It's way more doable than you ever knew. And so don't give in to your idea in your brain that you can't do it, or it's not worth it, or you don't have time, or you don't have money. It's not true. Book the phone call. So either take a picture, put the link in your browser, and let's talk. Let's upgrade. Let's join arms and help this planet to a better place. Let's do it. Let's do it. Can we do it? Let's do it. Thank you for being here, you guys. Thanks for being part of this journey with me, and thanks for learning these new things. Now, the last thing I need from you is I need to know what your action step is that you're going to take. So you committed this to me before we started. So in the chat box, please tell me what your action step is that you're going to take because you were here tonight. Because when I pour my life and soul into these, because I believe in you. I believe in you. You think I can't see you, but oh man, I see you right into your soul. I see you. I know who you are. I know you struggle. And I know that people around you struggle. And this is the most important thing that I know. And that is that if you will upgrade you, the people around you will upgrade. And so this isn't just about you. I'm not just talking to you. I'm talking to all the people that will upgrade because you link arms and we move forward down the path in a better direction. So I'm just going to say it one more time. Book a call. Book a call. Let's talk. All right. I'm going to practice naming my emotions. I'm going to find out what is holding me back. I'm going to research. Oh, it went by too fast. I'm going to reteach your message to my family. I love it. I am going to allow myself to feel emotions more often. I'm going to find out what's holding me back. I'm going to teach what I learned to my wife and children. Awesome, Jonathan. I love it. I will start naming my emotions. My action step is not to label those in my past, but learn to understand them. I need to write a letter. Excellent, you guys. I'm going to allow myself to feel emotions. I'm going to study and get back into the tear cycle to move forward. Love it. Okay, you guys, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for being one of the people on the planet who came at this time to be able to upgrade and to be able to make changes. And those of you who haven't picked an action step yet, book a phone call. Have that be your action step. And just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to be brave and I'm going to book a phone call. Because imagine if you were working with me through the holiday seasons into the beginning of the year. Can you believe we're talking about 2023 already? Imagine having somebody in your court helping you take off in 2023 and be able to influence your family members differently through the holidays. Absolutely powerful. I love it. All right. I can't wait to talk to you guys that book the phone call with me. Oh, and last thing, if you have any trouble with the book a phone call link, then you can email the office. Adam, can you put that link in the chat? You can email the office at support@3keyelements.com because we know sometimes technology doesn't work. And so book your phone call. And if you can't, then email the office and it'll timestamp it. So if you have any trouble, we'll be able to see the timestamp so that you can still be counted in one of those first 5 people. All right, it's time. Let's move forward. Don't get stuck in the E. Fair? All right, if you learned something tonight, raise your hand. Raise your hand. Oh, I'll type it here. Let's see, it's support@3keyelements.com. support@3keyelements.com. Awesome. I love that. And another action step you can take is when you get this recording, share it with somebody that needs to hear it. So let's all move forward. Cool? Oh, where did my hands go? I need to see these hands. Okay. Oh, there they are. All right. We're all going to move forward together. Love it. Okay. Have a great night. Thanks for staying late, you guys. I appreciate you. You're the best.